Welcome to Money Talks. I'm Nancy Stark, and with me today is Deanna Booker. Deanna is the Communication and Community Outreach Manager for Consumer Credit Counseling Service of Maryland and Delaware. She's my favorite guest.
Oh,
absolutely.
You're my favorite host.
Oh, that makes me feel good. Dee, before we get started, tell us a little bit about what CCCS does.
Sure. We are a 501c3 nonprofit community service organization. We offer all sorts of financial counseling, anything that folks might need to help to get their financial houses in order. We've been serving folks here on the Eastern Shore since 1966, so we've been around for 45 years. And again, just offering all kinds of financial counseling and education. So anything that folks might need to really help get their finances in order, we can help with.
That's wonderful. CCCS is definitely a wonderful member of the community.
Oh, thank you. We think so.
We think so too. It's amazing to think about it, but here we are already in July.
Yes.
And last month was National Homeownership Month, and I thought this month we would also continue with another housing-related topic.
Okay.
We're going to talk about reverse mortgages today.
Okay.
And for those people who are out there, reverse mortgages, if you haven't heard of them before, they're very popular, have become increasingly popular with older adults, especially since the economy went down south.
Mm-hmm.
And to start out, Dee, could you tell us a little bit about how reverse mortgages differ from traditional mortgages like the kind that we buy our homes using?
Sure. A reverse mortgage, if you have a reverse mortgage, you are actually getting a loan against the equity in your home. So you're going to use that equity, you're going to get a loan against it, you're going to still live in your house, retain title to the property, but you're not going to be making payments on the loan. To get a reverse mortgage, the youngest borrower on the loan has to be at least 62. So what that means generally is that you and your spouse have to be at least 62 years old. And you can get this loan. It's based on the amount of equity you have in the home. So generally, your credit rating, your income level, generally those things don't matter when it comes to getting a reverse mortgage. It is going to be about how much equity you have in the home. The lender is going to look at the value of your home, how much equity you have, and how old you are at the time you apply.
Well, that's interesting. So in other words, unlike other mortgages where we pay out, this one is actually the mortgage gets paid to you.
Exactly.
But it's not free money.
Well, no.
No, they're not going to do it just out of the graciousness of their hearts.
No, not at all.
When you take out a reverse mortgage, when do you have to pay back the money that you've received?
Sure. Generally, you don't pay the money back until one of three things or a combination of things happen. You permanently move away, you sell the home, or, God forbid, you pass away. You know, when one of those things would happen, then the loan has to be repaid.
So you're no longer in the home.
Exactly.
I see.
Now, if you sell the home, you are allowed to keep the proceeds of the sale that may be in excess of what of what's owed back on the loan. You do get to keep that, but the loan must be paid back.
Oh, that's nice, though. In other words, if you sell it for more than what you owe on the loan, the amount that's left over is yours.
Is your profit. Exactly.
That's excellent. Well, that sounds like for older folks, for senior citizens who have equity in their homes and maybe cash poor, that actually is a really good option for them. Is that always true?
It can be. But like with anything, you got to really check into it, because a reverse mortgage, while it may be perfect for one homeowner, it might not be the best thing for another one. So it really does depend on your situation.
Why is that?
Well, it's because it could be because of many things. There are fees that come along with reverse mortgages, closing costs, that sort of thing, and they can be kind of high sometimes. If you get a reverse mortgage, you are still responsible for paying the property tax. You retain the title to your home, but you do still have to pay the property taxes, the homeowner's insurance.
So you still got expenses.
Exactly. There's still expenses. You have to maintain the property, so any repairs and that kind of thing that need to be done, you're still responsible for that kind of thing. So that's why, because there's so many sort of ins and outs, and there's a lot that goes into a reverse mortgage, that's why it's required that older Americans who are considering getting this loan have to go through and get the counseling that comes along with it.
That makes sense. I'd also heard that it can affect, if you're an older person and you're receiving federal benefits, that it could affect your ability to get those.
That's absolutely
and continue
right. It
receiving
can
them.
impact, because there's going to be income involved, so it can impact your ability to qualify or stay qualified, for some government benefits. You're
For
absolutely
folks
right.
that are on like Medicare and VA benefits, that would be an important thing, I think.
Exactly. So again, another factor that would have to be looked at. So that's why the counseling that comes before being able to get a reverse mortgage is so very important.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that. I understand the Consumer Credit Counseling Service of Maryland and Delaware actually provides reverse mortgage counseling, and that your counselors are certified to do so.
Absolutely.
About how many people do you help with housing issues each year?
That's a good question. I think that we, just off the top of my head, I think that we probably counsel about maybe 3,000 or so folks.
That's quite a few.
Every year. Yeah, there's a lot of people. So I'd say maybe 3,000 a year. And we do the counseling in live workshops, kind of in a group setting, and also there's one-on-one counseling that's available too. So I'd say about 3,000 people.
That's really good.
Right.
I also heard that you have a very special opportunity for folks who are interested in reverse mortgage counseling.
We do. The counseling, the reverse mortgage counseling and the certification that comes along with it typically costs typically costs $125. Up until the end of September, we are able, because of a federal funding initiative that's just come through, we are able to offer this counseling for free up through the end of September. So anybody who needs it or is thinking about it, who wants to get it, now's the best time.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, when it comes to reverse mortgage counseling, how does it work?
Well, when a client first approaches us, so they first call in or they stop in and they want some information, we're going to give them a whole packet of resources to go over. There's going to be a checklist of information they've got to gather together. So, and we're going to schedule them an appointment. But we do all of that ahead of time so that when they come in for the appointment, they've already seen all of the forms and all of the paperwork. They've already had a chance to maybe gather up some questions that they want to ask. They've gotten a preview, so to speak, of everything that's going to be required.
Given that it's a fairly complicated product.
It really is. So we really want to make sure folks are prepared. So we start out giving that information. And then when a client comes in for their session, we really start with that really deep financial assessment to see where that client is financially at that point. So really make sure, again, that the reverse mortgage is the best option for them, that it really is going to fit with whatever their future needs might be. We really take everything into consideration about their current financial standing, so we can help them determine if a reverse mortgage is the best thing for them to do, and if it is, to let them or to help them through that process and give them all the information they need.
I would think you also probably look, especially where it's older adults, and older adults' needs change rapidly as they age.
Exactly.
That you're also looking at it from the point of view of where they're going to be, say, 10 years or 20 years or 30 years down the road.
Exactly, and that's just what I was saying. As their needs change in the future, even if it looks good right now and it looks like it might be the best thing to do now, let's think about, what's going to be going on with you in the next 5, 10, 15 years, and we really try to think and help the client think about those things before anybody signs on any dotted lines.
That makes full sense.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you a little secret. My brother and I sat in on a reverse mortgage counseling session with one of your counselors. Probably it's been about a year ago with my dad.
Oh, okay.
And it was a really interesting experience. And I'm going to say, from my point of view, I thought it was a really in-depth counseling session, and that it really is something that you have to sit and listen. You have to really be thinking and asking questions, because there are so many options. There are different ways of receiving the money. You could get it in bulk, or you could get it, a certain amount.
You're exactly right. There are lots of ins and outs. Like you're saying, the payment can come to you in monthly installments, or you could get it in a lump sum, or it could be seen as a line of credit. All of those kinds of things. And you mentioned sitting in with your dad. That's very interesting that you say that, because one of the other things that our counselors that are doing reverse mortgage counseling, that they're really, really strict, for lack of a better word, about, is that they meet with the borrower themselves. So we have a lot of folks whose children are wanting to represent them, or whose attorneys are wanting to speak for them and talk for them, and that's absolutely not allowed. Our counselors have to be convinced that that person, even if they're elderly, that borrower understands what's happening and what they're being asked to sign their name to, and everything that's going on, or they're not going to issue the certification. So it's very interesting that you came with your dad and you made it so he understood and that everything was explained fully and everybody walked away with the information that they needed. That's very, very important.
It was a very
good. I'm glad you had a good experience.
Very comfortable session.
Good.
Let's talk a little bit about that. How does CCCS's counseling differ from other programs that might be out there?
Well, there are a lot of places out there, that
I've noticed that.
Yeah, that are saying they give reverse mortgage counseling or advice, whatever it is. And honestly, some of them are reputable and some of them are not. So it really just comes down to investigating,
How do
who
you
it is.
know? How do you know if they're reputable?
Well, I think one of the first things I think that folks should be looking for is this agency that I'm talking to, are they HUD approved?
That's important.
Because if they are a HUD approved agency, then their counselors are certified and probably reputable, so that, I think that's a big thing to look at. Also, you want to look at, is this agency making it so I'm going to be able to get personalized counseling that really is going to be tailored to my personal situation, not just some blanket, kind of standardized thing. Am I getting personalized information, personalized knowledge, that's going to help me make an informed decision? Another thing is this counselor really laying out all my options?
Now, how do you know if it's personalized, though? Let's go back to that.
Because I think that it has to take your personal financial standing into consideration. So this counselor at this agency really has to be looking through your personal documents. They have to be developing your budget. They've got to really be working off personal, identifiably personal, how about if I say it that way, information that is going to let you know that they are really talking about you. That it isn't just standard, it isn't just kind of off the cuff, that you're really getting some personalized knowledge.
I've noticed that there's actually a lot of, there are a lot of people who offer this service on an online basis. Are they able to still make that a personalized process?
I think that's where the investigation comes in, because there are a lot of agencies that are offering online, but I don't believe that you can get that kind of in-depth, engaged, interactive back and forth with a counselor online.
You certainly wouldn't be able to ask questions in the same way, and I'm going to say that was a really important part of our process.
That's exactly right. Getting your questions asked and answered, all of that goes into the process. So I really think that's an important thing. The other thing, I think, is the time. One of the questions that you want to ask right up front of a counselor, of an agency, is how long does this take? In-depth, thorough reverse mortgage counseling session takes at the very least 2 hours. And that's a one-on-one.
Right.
Some of the group
Ours certainly did.
Yeah, some of the group workshops, they can go 4, 5, 6, up to 8 hours sometimes. So if an agency or counselor tells you, we can get this done in 20 minutes, I'll have you a certificate. No, you probably don't want to. You're probably not going to be getting the kind of service that you really need around something as complicated as this.
But I think people out there are going to think 2 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours, that's a lot of time to spend.
It is. But compare those 2 hours or 4 or 6 hours to the worry and expense and heartache and grief that you'll experience if you make a bad decision, or if you don't get enough information, or if something isn't done properly within this process. It could end up costing you so much more money and time than 2 hours.
That makes sense. I mean, you could end up having paid all of those fees not to be able to pay back what you owe.
Exactly.
Well, let me ask you something. How can Eastern Shore residents contact CCCS who are interested in getting reverse mortgage counseling?
Absolutely. They can call our toll-free housing line. The number is 1-877-731-8486, or they can visit our website, www.cccs-inc.org.
Oh, that's excellent. And just to repeat again, you said the service as far as free counseling will be available probably through September if the money holds.
That's exactly right. As long as this funding holds up. So I'm thinking through the end of September, but it really is going to be a first come, kind of first serve sort of thing. So like I was saying before, if you want this or you need this counseling, now is the time to get it before these monies dry up and we have to put a price back.
On that note, what good advice we're going to take a moment and shift gears a little bit, Deanna, to a different topic, and it's another housing topic. I was thinking about it, and it is really pretty hot outside.
It is.
And one of the things you're paying for when you're in your house is utilities, whether you're renting or you're owning.
Yes.
And you know what? Some of our viewers had the very same thought, because we got a few questions in on this very same topic. Our first guy who wrote to us, Gerald, he wrote us, I just got my June air conditioning bill, and it was a lot higher than I expected. We have central air and tend to run the AC a lot. How can we cool our home without this added expense?
Well, Gerald, I guess the first thing is just to really be thinking about when you're running the air conditioner, and to turn it off when it doesn't need to be on. You know, to really only be running the AC when it really is needed, when you really have to.
Like cold nights when it cools down?
Exactly. When it cools off, turn it off. You know, turn the AC back. You know, I think those kinds of basic things are going to help us be able to save. Also, you know, so if you turn it off at night, the next morning, you know, when the sun's shining again, you close the shades, close the curtains, you know, you trap in some of that cool air, you know, that you've gotten because you've opened the windows when you turn the AC off. So now the next morning, trap that cool air in with the shades, with the curtains, right? Because sunny windows, and I've read this, sunny windows, I mean, they can account for like 10, 15, 25%, you know, of how much the AC is running. So if you're able to darken those windows and keep things cool that way, that's a way to do it. Ceiling fans.
Oh, ceiling fans are wonderful.
Ceiling fans are a great thing because it's about how high you can set that temperature in your house and still be comfortable. So folks that are using the AC but also are using ceiling fans, they're able to set their thermostats a little higher. That's going to save you. Yeah. Ultimately, as high as you can set the thermostat, that's going to save you 10-15% when it comes to what the bill is. So I think some of those basic things. Here's another thing that it's interesting. I just read this, and this never occurred to me. But I've read that you shouldn't put heating sources, so lamps, things that get hot, lamps, televisions, that kind of thing. You shouldn't have them near your thermostat, because those things create heat, and the thermostat sets it, and it causes the AC to work harder. So that's a little tip. Make sure you don't have lamps or TVs.
About that. Yeah. Well, we've talked a little bit about thermostat. Let's talk about that further. What about programmable thermostats?
They're big now. They're popular, and I think they're a really great way. Again, it's about controlling that temperature. So you set it so the unit is automatically set. You know, cycling on, cycling off, that kind of thing. And I know for a fact that Delmarva Power has one that they're able to offer to their customers. So if you don't have a programmable thermostat, check with them. They have one that's even web programmable, that you can get
really
set.
Cool.
So those are a great idea. And again, it's about keeping that temperature as high as you can and still be comfortable, because that's really where you're saving.
The other thing that's wonderful about programmable thermostats, we have one, is that it allows you to set it up and forget it in a way. I mean, it's like when you're away from home, it's not running. When you're there and you really need it,
that's
it turns on.
You're absolutely right. That's the programming in programmable thermostats. You really want to set it when we're away from home, when you don't need to cool the house. You know, there's stretches of 8-9 hours at a time when we're away at work. The kids are out at school. The house, you don't need to have it set, so you can actually, or you don't need to have the AC working. You can actually program those thermostats to go with that cycle, and it really does end up saving you a lot of money.
I can believe that. It's also a lot more convenient.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, another question I have for you is just what about the AC unit or the heat pump itself? What are some things we can do there?
Well, I think, and this is just something that I've read about this, because believe it or not, clients, they're calling in and during their counseling sessions, they're talking about their utility bills. So we're thinking, well, how can we help? And so I've read about just the maintenance of your systems. So changing the filters, that kind of stuff that we don't think about,
That's a very important one.
It is, because, they've looked at it. And if your filters are clean, you change them regularly, it's making your machine work better, not have to work as hard. So changing the filters, just doing regular maintenance.
Every twice a year, once a year.
Exactly, on your system. So number one, you don't find yourself in 100 degrees, with your
Without an
machine
air
not
conditioner.
broken, right?
Right.
So, doing some regular maintenance just to avoid that kind of thing, but also just to keep checking that it's running properly. I think over the long haul, that kind of thing saves you.
I've always heard that it's like with your car. If you wait to get maintenance done on your car until something really serious breaks, then you've got this giant cost.
Exactly.
And with your heating and cooling system, it's the same thing.
Exactly right.
That's true. Well, we have another comment.
Okay.
Another question. This one you might be able to solve a marital dispute.
Oh my goodness.
This is Sherry. Sherry writes, my husband told me that it makes sense to unplug electrical appliances when you're not using them. This seems like a lot of hassle. I can't believe they use enough energy to affect our utility bill. Which of us is right?
Oh
There
my
you go. You get to
Not
be Ann
taking
Landers
sides.
as well as
Not taking sides, but Sherry, you're not right. It's true. They call it phantom electricity. So when we're not using our what we call small appliances, you should unplug them. You should, and even some of our larger ones like TVs. These huge TVs that we have, even when we're not using them, they're sucking power out. So if we're not going to be using the television, unplug it. Unplug it.
That makes
And
sense.
I mean, they've really done studies, and there's been some research done around this, and it can cost up to, in excess of another $125 a year to run the television, even when it's not in use.
running.
Right. So our televisions, another thing that a lot of folks don't think about, our kids, their gaming systems, so if you've got the Wii or the Xbox,
Right.
unplug them if the kids aren't using them. Because again, over the course of a year, another 50, 60, 70 bucks to keep them running while they're not in use. The same thing goes for smaller appliances, smaller electronics around the house. So I know she mentioned something in her comment about the hassle. If you don't feel like going around unplugging everything all the time, what you can do is get some of those energy saving power strips, where a lot of things can be plugged into at once, and then there's just a switch on them where you can just turn off a whole bunch of stuff with the flip of one switch. So that's a way to save.
That's a great idea. It's also a great idea for those of us who have our TV plugged in behind the console.
Yes.
Where it's hard to get to. Okay, well, I also have heard that, that it makes a difference on when you use your appliances. It isn't just a matter of how you use them, but when. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I think so. And again, some of it is just sort of common sense stuff. If there are things that involve heat, you want to save using those appliances to the cooler parts of the day.
Oh, that makes sense.
So if you want to shower and, that kind of thing, wash your hair and you need that hot water, do it later in the evening. That sort of thing. So I think laundry is one of them. If you're doing hot water laundry, which you don't necessarily have to.
We'll talk about that a little later.
Oh, really? Do that kind of thing later in the evening so the appliances don't have to work as hard.
That makes sense. Does it also make sense if you don't have to use it, to not use it?
Oh, well, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. If you can get by without using an appliance at all, do that. So if you can hang the clothes out, you don't have to use a dryer.
Clothes that have been hung out.
Or if, you don't have to plug in the blow dryer, you don't have to plug in the electric shaver, if you can get by without using it, absolutely, because you're just saving energy and money.
Good. Well, we do have a topic that fits right with what you were saying.
Okay.
And Nicole wrote it to us, and she said, I've heard that washing clothes in cold water is one way to save on utilities.
Yeah,
See,
that's
she said
exactly
the
right.
same thing you did.
That's exactly right.
Does this make sense, or are there other ways to save in the utility room?
It makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. Cold water washing is perfect. It's perfect for your laundry. And again, they've been doing research and doing studies, and they found that not only are you saving energy, saving money, that kind of thing, if you do your laundry in cold water, but also you're saving your clothes. If you use a cold water detergent, if you use a cold water detergent and you use cold water, it shows, and it's been proven, that your clothes are going to wear longer. They're going to last longer, through more washes. So yeah, it's a big deal. And the other thing is, if you're doing your laundry in cold water, that means your water heater isn't having to work overtime.
That makes sense.
And so it's not, and also, you're not spending a whole lot of time and energy and money heating up your laundry room,
which
so,
no one needs anyway.
Exactly. So I think all of that kind of thing goes together. Those are all perfect ideas. Perfect, right, Nicole?
Well, let's talk a little bit about the water heater. That's another area where there's a lot of money goes down to the drain.
Yes, that's that can be 20-25%
That's
of energy
an
use in the
amazing
house.
amount.
Exactly. That's a quarter of total home energy use. So you really want to think about your water heater. Set it. It's one of the things I tell folks. Turn it back. Turn it down to that like 125, that warm setting. And that, again, is going to save you some energy, thereby saving you some money. But also, you turn it to that warm setting, you're mitigating the risk of people being burned, people being scalded. If you've got your water heater set on that like 140 or 145 temperature.
Doesn't take much to burn yourself.
Exactly, and I've heard stories, and we've seen it on the news, where children have been burned because the water's so scalding hot. So that's going to be one of the ways to save a whole lot of, confusion over a water heater if you turn it down, turn that setting down.
That's a good idea. It also, maybe if you don't have it insulated, it helps to have it insulated as well, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, well, I hear lighting is another major area where we give away our utility, our energy dollars.
BTUs,
How can we save on energy and on money there?
Well, I think it's just the common thing that we all know that maybe we all don't do. When you leave the room, turn the lights out.
Oh, my God, I always say that.
You just have to. We have to do that. We really have to turn the lights out. And no matter what, if we're still, if we still have traditional bulbs in, turn them out. When you leave the room, turn them off. Even if you have the new fluorescent lighting, you're going to be gone longer than 15 minutes, turn them off. Turn them off, because even though they last very long, still you're using up some energy. And that speaks to the difference between traditional bulbs and the CFLs. If you haven't phased out yet all of your traditional light bulbs, the next time, they burn out, replace them. Now's the time to replace them with that fluorescent lighting, those CFLs. And people say to me all the time, because I say this, when we're talking about budgeting, I'm always sharing this little tip with folks. And people always say, "Oh, Deanna, they cost more." And they do. They do. They absolutely do cost more right up front. But they use 75% less energy, less electricity, 75%. So, I mean, it's going to pay for itself quicker than you can imagine. So they really, really are a good investment, and they last for years.
Not only that, they're an investment in the environment as
well. Absolutely.
Yep. Well, we have another lovely viewer comment here, and this is actually the last one.
Okay.
She says, our home is getting older, and I've noticed an interesting increase in our utility bills the past couple of years. We are thinking of getting a professional energy audit. Do you have any advice?
Yeah, I think those are good ideas. I really do, because it's a way, and a lot of them are free. It's a way to get an assessment done. It's not going to cost you anything. A lot of power companies, they might call it a quick energy checkup or something like that. I know, again, for a fact, Delmarva Power has one, that they offer to their customers. And what happens is a professional comes out to your house and they check everything. They check your heating and cooling systems, your lighting, your doors and windows, everything. They go over everything. And if they identify some problems or some problem areas that you have, then you have the opportunity to have someone come back and do a more detailed assessment and repair, of course, that you'll have to pay for. It's second opinion, exactly.
Right.
But those are really, really good. They're really good.
Well, that's interesting. We had an energy audit done probably about 3 or 4 years ago, and one of the things that they recommended is that we caulk around all of our windows and doors, that little space where there's a little bit of a crack with it coming in. I've been amazed. It does save on money, not just in the winter, but also in the summer.
Absolutely.
Why is that?
Well, I think it's because, that hot air is being allowed, inside our homes, thereby making our thermostats sense it, thereby making our machines work harder. So I think that's a great idea. Sealing the windows, the doors, you want to make sure you get that done. A little way you can check, light an incense, on a stick. The stick kind of incense.
Have the energy audit.
Yeah, just light that incense, hold it up near the window. If the smoke from the incense stick comes inside your house, then you need to seal. Exactly, in the summertime.
In the winter, it's going out, right? Yeah.
But then you know that you need to seal up and do some caulking. And that kind of thing, it's so inexpensive.
It's easy to do.
Yeah, it's easy to do and it's inexpensive. The supplies that you need for that, you can go right down to the local hardware store. And even if you don't know how, a lot of times down at the local hardware store, they're having these little DIY demonstrations,
Right, exactly,
and they show you how to
exactly.
do it real quick, and it's something we can do ourselves and save some money. Save some money.
On that happy note, Deanna, I can't believe it. We've come almost to the end of another program.
Oh my goodness, already.
It goes so fast. Before we leave, could you tell folks out there how they can contact Delmarva Power if they want a quick checkup?
Sure, they can go to Delmarva's site. It's Home Energy Savings, all one word, homeenergysavings.delmarva.com. And once they're on that site, they can see all of the information about the audit, and they can even schedule the appointment to have the professional come out.
Oh, that's excellent. And I know CCCS helps people who want to learn how to set up a budget, or if they're having a problem with their finances as far as credit counseling. How can they contact CCCS?
They can call our 1-800 number. It's 1-800-642-2227, or they can visit our website, www.cccs-inc.org.
Excellent. And one last question about that. For viewers who want to contact you and ask a question that we can use later on,
Oh, sure.
how can they do that?
They can email me directly. My email address is dbooker@cccs-inc.org.
Excellent. Well, on that note, do you have any parting advice?
Well, I'll just share something that you and I always say, Nancy, off camera. The more you know, the more you grow. So I think that can apply to all of the
mortgages,
things.
utilities,
all
you
of
name
the
it.
things that we've been talking about today. Just get the information that you need, and it's going to help you.
That's excellent advice, as always. It's wonderful having you here.
Oh, thank you. It's my
always a
pleasure.
pleasure.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah, and I want to give a very special thanks to PAC 14
Oh, yes.
for making
Thank
this
you, PAC
possible.
14.
We love working with you. And for those of you out there, we hope you have a good summer. Money Talks.
Would you like to see your community organization or nonprofit group featured on PAC 14? To get started, contact us at 410-677-5014 or visit our website at www.pac14.org. PAC 14 is a great way to connect with your community.